Hi, everyone. I am Sam Osterhout. I'm the executive producer here at Lincoln Square, and it is time for one of my favorite, but also one of the darkest half hours of my week when I get to talk to my friend Andra Watkins. Andra, how are you?
I'm great. How are you and how's everybody?
I'm good. The chat has been really kicking in this week. I feel like people are people have been paying attention for months, but it feels like people are really paying attention now. Do you get that
Yeah,
sense?
it feels like light is dawning for a few more people that, oh, wow, they really did mean everything they said they were going to do. They
Yeah.
really did.
Oh, they did. Oh, weird.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about that. I want to talk about you've written about social media surveillance,
Hmm.
and I think there's in and of itself, social media surveillance is not great, right? But when you tie it into the broader picture of white Christian nationalism, it becomes actually really bad, like a really not good thing.
Hmm.
And then you tie that in further to policies like what's happening in South Carolina with their proposed total abortion ban. And you have really all the ingredients for something that is incredibly dystopian. One thing I forgot to mention in the green room, I'd love to talk about the soft secession uh,
Okay.
because I think that's so compelling, and I'm seeing it mentioned more and more these days. So I
Well,
just
at Lincoln Square have even talked about it.
yeah,
So I everybody that talks about it gets it in front of more people.
yep, yeah.
So
Okay, so let's start with social media surveillance and what it means to be left wing to people like Russell Vogt.
so this week the regime announced that they were going to start using social media surveillance to coordinate with ICE. So they say they're specifically targeting for immigration violations and people who may be here illegally. So they're scanning social media content on multiple platforms, including places like Reddit, including places like Substack, to see if they can find content that is antagonistic toward ICE or pro immigration. Um, it's no secret that they're doing that or surprise to me. In the past 2 weeks, the president signed the presidential memorandum NSPM 7, which I think we touched on briefly last week when I was here, but basically labels multiple kinds of First Amendment protected speech terrorism. And coupled with their actions with Doge that I covered in March on my Substack, I had a Microsoft cybersecurity expert come on and talk about where this may be leading. And she said this is leading to some kind of WeChat China type surveillance structure where we'll get social credits and be graded on what we say in public and be graded on our facial expressions to see in this kind of Minority Report way. I don't know whether people have seen that Tom Cruise movie where you might be a pre-criminal and might be inclined to commit a crime before you do it. So that's everything they're talking about with this. And what's so dangerous about it that millions of Americans do not yet understand is I grew up in Christian nationalism. I was indoctrinated in that. So I understand that they view the world in a very concrete manner, that their way of seeing the world, that their way of interpreting the Bible, that their way of interpreting laws is the only way, it is the right way, it is God's way, and everyone else is wrong. And they can't compromise on that even an inch. And last week, when I covered this on my Substack after we talked, I referenced Sam Alito getting caught on a hot mic saying that at an event. So they very much believe they can't compromise. So while most Americans think, well, we have, people on the right and people on the left, and I'm trying to do my camera so that people can follow my hands, and there's a spectrum of people on this spectrum of right and left. And when they say radical left liberals, the radical left, the woke radical left, they mean the people way over there on the far left. That's not what they mean at all. If you are just a scintilla off the spectrum from what Christian nationalists believe is right and correct, you are the left. So the whole spectrum is the left if you are left of them. And that's what they mean when they say that. So when they talk in this presidential memo about surveilling people and charging people with being terrorists, you could have voted for this 3 times, but believe same-sex marriage is fine. And therefore, you are a radical left terrorist because you do not adhere to their definition of what is a family and what is moral. And more Americans need to understand that that's how they're going to interpret this presidential memo. They're going to use Christian nationalist interpretations and force them on everyone. And if you don't line up with them exactly, you are a terrorist. And they are going to use Palantir's social media tools to root that out online and in public with flock cameras and other things like that.
I think there's a couple of pieces about this that we've started kind of skipping over, and the idea that in some ways, who gives a crap what they think is left? We can be left. Mm-hmm. We can be far left if we want. We mm-hmm. can be in the middle, or we can be over here, or we can be just a millimeter to the left of them. It doesn't matter. This is America. We get to have all of those beliefs. That's it, right? And so that's the thing that gets me the most, is that it isn't just about the labeling. It's about the demonizing. I think that, leftists or people who are to the left have this like, well, my beliefs, are fine, or, they probably won't target me, or I don't know why they would target me because I'm not hurting anyone. That's not the point. The point is they need to live this country in their own vision, and you are not a part of that until you align with that vision.
One of the things that's baked into the ideals of this country is the idea of live and let live. And, Roger Severino, who's another raging Christian nationalist, Cult of Opus Dei member who wrote basically the whole Health and Human Services section of Project 2025, worked in the first administration, wrote in Project 2025 that we cannot live and let live. We cannot. We're commanded to force everyone to live by the one true law, which is the Bible. And all of these people believe that. Kevin Roberts believes that. Sam Alito believes that. Clarence Thomas believes that. The other Supreme Court justices that are voting all these things, down likely believe that. Caroline Leavitt, who we're going to talk about in a bit, likely believes that. So, the idea of living and not living, that, I can profoundly disagree with you, but you have a right to be an asshole, which I've said on here before, is not something they subscribe to. You have a right to agree with them, or they will bring God's vengeance on you and punish you as a wrongdoer for disagreeing with them.
Right. And so that's our baseline. And I think everything else that cascades from there ought to really alarm you, because it's not just that they believe this, it's that they're building systems to enact it. Mm-hmm. And here we are. And right now, as I understand, tell me in the chat if you guys are multi-screening it. I think Comey is being taken in right now. He's being, he's actually got his day in court today, and it should happen any second. That's a targeting. And James Comey, he's our left wing, it's just proof.
It's a lesson to people who think they're immune. In my view, Comey is one of the people who helped all this happen.
Of course.
With his targeting of the emails. He was not a foe of this. yet he's being charged with crimes. So, and you can look at historically what these kinds of regimes do. They always come after people who've helped them. Nobody is immune. And that's what enough Americans don't understand. Americans, if you're not, peoples of color understand this.
Yes.
As Americans, but white Americans don't understand what it's like to live in a predatory government that can pull you out of your car and charge you with a crime based on nothing.
Based on nothing. And the chat are saying, yeah, he pled not guilty. So that has just happened. Because of course, but I want to just make this one point and get your take on it as well, and then move on to South Carolina, because I think that's a really big story that people aren't, we've taken our eyes off so much. But you say everyone is at risk. And I think about those masked dudes sitting on top of buildings, popping off pepper balls at priests and tackling women. I don't understand their disconnect where they believe that they can do this to somebody else, but for no reason, but they are immune from it. They aren't. They are.
No, they aren't.
Everyone in this country is now a suspect. And if they need to, they'll figure out what crime you committed later.
And most of
ICE. That includes everyone.
Most of those iced people are expendable.
Yes.
The people in the regime don't care what happens to them.
That's
so,
right.
They're trying to invoke violence. They're trying to provoke that. And these are the people they're putting on the front lines to be sacrificed. I wish more ICE people could see it that way, because they're pawns that are being used to be sacrificed for people who do not care about them.
No. Everyone will find out.
Yeah.
I wonder, let's turn to South Carolina. So, South Carolina is proposing a total abortion ban. Where are we with this now? And it's just not anywhere in the news, which is so disheartening.
They had hearings about it where close to 200 people, I think, showed up to talk to this panel of all white men, mostly old white men. That's how South Carolina works. I lived there for 50 years. So, it was the good old boy network on display as all these people begged them not to do this, but they're going to pass it. There's no doubt. This will pass. And so it allows women who have abortions to be charged with a felony so they can spend 30 years to life in prison. And in South Carolina, that could also mean that they could be sentenced to death. They do have the death penalty. And one of the fun ways they kill people in South Carolina is to shoot them to death in a firing squad. Jeez. So, and they think that's fine. So the woman has that risk, but also anyone who provides an abortion to her as a doctor, helps her, sends her a website link for an abortion clinic out of state, gives her gas money, gives her a ride, gives her literature, mails her a pill from out of state. Anyone who participates in that can also be charged with a felony and be put into prison for up to 30 years. So and there's no exception for rape or incest. There's no exception for viability. So it is a complete and total abortion ban with the death penalty for the woman on the line. And if this passes and it stands up to scrutiny at the Supreme Court level, which I predict it will with this Supreme Court, every red state is going to copy it. They'll probably copy it before it goes to the Supreme Court so that there'll be more states on the lawsuit. So this is a really dreadful moment for women and girls, anyone who can be pregnant in the United States, because it is putting us at risk of death simply for being pregnant. And in South Carolina, if you can even get a man convicted of rape, which is near to impossible, the maximum he'd spend in prison is 30 years.
And Patrick just made that point. You get 30 years for rape, but if the woman aborts a baby from that rape, it is death.
Yes.
I mean, you got to let that sink in a minute. Pro-life equals death penalty, Dukester says in the chat. I think so. A kind of bigger point about this, and that point is big enough. You know, this is a monstrous thing, and it's not just monstrous for women's health and reproductive health, although it is. It's also creating a system of sort of nation states within our own boundaries, right? Because if you're a woman, and particularly, and you cross state lines, you are under different laws, and that can mean life or death for you, right? So it seems like there's already a bit of a breaking apart of the fabric of this country. And you talk about, you're calling it the red recession. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, my idea of a red recession is just completely boycott red states. You know, I mean, if you are a woman or a girl, or you are married to a woman or have a daughter, you have 2 daughters, you know, it's like, I would not go anywhere near a red state because they are not safe in a red state. So I'm recommending that you don't vacation there, that you don't have business events there, that you, if you can avoid flying through there to make a connection, avoid that. Don't give money to businesses that are based in red states. And I say that as someone who has lived in red states until recently, my whole life. You know, I still own property in a red state, and I'm still saying we have to do this to red states. And I don't mean to say that to punish plenty of wonderful, lovely people who do not vote for this, who live in red states. But we cannot keep propping up these governments in these red states and these businesses that are promoting this kind of thing. So causing a red recession is one thing that we can do to punish these red states for these kinds of laws and behaviors and this treatment of people. The other thing we can do is encourage our politicians in blue states to consider a soft secession, which other people have talked about at Lincoln Square. And so that essentially means forming compacts and agreements between blue states to have things like science-based healthcare. And the Western Healthcare Compact is already, that's one of the things that people have done for that. But to protect biomedical research and have it be based in science, to have science-based vaccine standards, to have abortion and contraception be protected for the people of those areas. I mean, you can go on and on with the things that people could do with this. But, you know, one thing that people are increasingly calling for is not sending federal dollars from these states to the federal government. And Gavin Newsom actually threatened to do that several days ago for the first time. So, and as difficult as it would be to do that, it could be done.
I mean, it could be done. We'll talk another time about the sort of broad ramifications of that politically and structurally. But I think it does feel like we're moving in that direction just naturally.
Well, I mean, whether Americans want to admit it or not, we are in a civil war. And you know, there may not have been any significant bloodshed yet, but this is a civil war. When one state's National Guard comes into another state against that state and the leaders of that state's will, that is an invasion.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's not good.
No, to say the least. That is the understatement of the week, Andra. We talked about the possibility of the 82nd Airborne taking over Portland, and we've seen Texas National Guard arrive in Illinois, and ICE and National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. and in Los Angeles. It's happened so quickly, but it's also incremental.
Mm-hmm.
These steps that they're just really methodically taking. And so every step seems outrageous. However, it is just 2% more outrageous than the last step that you accepted. At some point, we have to not accept it.
Yeah, I mean, we're already beyond that point. But
We're far beyond that.
I mean, to give people a little bit of hope, I don't believe they were ready to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is something that they planned for a few months from now. But the threat of the Epstein files being released,
Yeah,
and how absolutely dreadful what is in there must be, has caused them to accelerate. And I think they've accelerated faster than they were planning. And so this all seems a little harried and hurried and not as tightly coordinated as I think it would have been in a few months. So the upside is there's a greater chance that they could fail because they're doing this faster than I think they plan to.
yeah. I found this on one of your more recent posts, but these kinds of governments eventually fail and fall, always, always, always. It's never too late to learn what we can and apply the knowledge to eventually defeat them. And
Yeah.
I find that so useful because especially you and me, we're so tied into the media, and we are like, anytime a news alert comes on, I'm like, do we have to go live about this? What host do I get to cover this story? We are so right here in this very moment, but history is built on a trillion moments, and we
Yeah.
have a whole future spread out before us, and this will change and it will end, and we don't know when, but we're right in the middle of it. So that kind of perspective is always so welcome. Before, I know you have to go kind of early, I just want to introduce our white Christian nationalist of the week. It's hard to even look at this picture, but Caroline Levitt
Yeah.
is a devout Catholic, and you and I had this discussion in the green room about whether or not she's Opus Dei. And I'm, thanks to your introduction, I'm interviewing Gareth Gore. It'll be released over the weekend. But he wrote the incredible book Opus, about Opus Dei.
Mm-hmm.
So watch for that. But let's talk Caroline Levitt.
Well, Caroline Levitt is a very devout Roman Catholic. She's 20. Is she 27 now? She's very young. She's the youngest press secretary that's ever been. But she's always been on this spectrum of far-right radicalization. She was sent to Roman Catholic schools. She went to a Catholic university and studied communications. She worked in the first Trump regime, writing letters as an intern type person, writing letters and that kind of thing, so it wasn't a high-profile kind of job. But from that, she decided that she wanted to run for Congress. So she ran in New Hampshire, where she's from. She lost, but not by a ton. I think she got 46% of the vote.
Right.
So, that whole campaign put her on this regime's radar. She did a lot of training with the Heritage Foundation in advance of Project 2025 being implemented. So she was one of the people who would educate people, help screen people for their work database that they were building of sycophant loyalists. She appeared in videos for them that were done online. And then when the regime started, she was inaugurated as the first press secretary. I said that they would have a Joseph Goebbels type person, that they would work to consolidate the media as they have. And a lot of the things that she's done were things that were in Project 2025 that were called for to centralize the message and make it the president's message.
Yeah.
And so propagandize it. So she's been very seminal, I believe, in making that happen. She may or may not be affiliated with Opus Dei, because as you'll find out when you hear Gareth talk, he's amazing. Please make time to come to his event. He's just such a wonderful person and so knowledgeable about that cult. But they don't tell people they're in it. So you never really know whether they're in it or not. But dominion, like the dominionists, is their central philosophy, and forcing all the planet to return to the one true faith, which is Catholicism. They want to undo the Protestant Reformation. They want to undo the Enlightenment and force everyone on earth to be Catholic again. So I wouldn't be surprised if she were affiliated with that.
Yeah, and the way she speaks so aggressively and with so much certainty, even when she's contradicting herself within the same set of sentences, it is certainty, and that seems like a trait that so many of them have adopted.
It's a narcissist trait.
Mm-hmm.
And having been exposed to that, narcissists can lie to your face and make you believe that what you just saw happen didn't happen.
Yeah.
They're very good at that. And so she has that ability. I feel sorry for her child.
Well, I used AI to run her image through AI to see what she would look like in the future. And this is what we came up with.
Really?
Does anyone know Dolores Umbridge? She's from the Harry Potter series. Anyway, she kind of reminds me of Dolores Umbridge. I don't know. If you don't know who Dolores Umbridge is, you should look her up because it's very funny. She took over Hogwarts and was evil and certain and
But they always look so sweet and nice and kind.
So yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, Andra, it's so good to talk to you every week, and I know you have to go. Any final thoughts? What do we need to look at this week?
Don't give up hope. Keep working in your communities. Boycott everything you can. Stop spending money everywhere you can. Starve this government of money and attention. Fascists need you to engage with them to be successful.
Yeah.
So do everything you can to just not give them that.
And I'll say one last plug on for such a time as this. I found your spreadsheet of companies that are doing bad fascist work. Everyone should check that out.
It's public. It's public for everybody, so anybody can access that.
Yeah, you can always go, and it's incredible. It's really eye-opening. Thank you for your work, and thanks for chatting, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye, everyone.